Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlacht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Couple reminders for you guys. Make sure that you mark your calendars for November 15th. It's a game against the Miami Heat. We're doing Down to Dunk night with the Thunder. So if you want to come and hang out with us, we're all going to be sitting together in the arena. We're going to have a little pre-game podcast at a location that I should be able to tell you very soon. And it's going to be super fun. And I hope that we get to sit together and be loud and weird and great. So be sure to look for that. I will be sending out a link for that, hopefully by the end of this week, so that you guys can reserve your tickets, reserve a spot. We're going to have limited spots for the live podcast before the game. So we want to make sure that you guys have a chance to get those. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, look out for that. I got my guy Al Baby Cakes here. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew? And I'll be there too.
Alex is going to be there.
I mean,
that's like reason enough to buy a ticket, is that you'll get to see Alex in person there. I'm trying to even remember the last time I saw you in person. When was that?
Don't even know. At least 2 years. Probably 2 Christmases ago.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's crazy. That is weird. I mean, we talk like two plus times a week.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in 2 years. It's wild. Something else that's wild, Al. Josh Giddey.
Oh, man.
I'm ready for all the overreactions.
No.
We have now seen him. Hold on. Chill. We've now seen him a total of 35 minutes of play. But we're ready to fire off the takes.
First thing I'd say is my overreaction is that I don't think what I'm saying is an overreaction, Andrew. That's how confident I am in it.
Okay.
I don't want to diminish it by acting like it's a bold take or a hot take or something like that. No, this is the way I genuinely feel. Because first of all, I just want to say, because a lot of people were saying, like, why should we care about, Josh Giddey having a good game? Other players on the team, like Baisley, had a bad game. Why do we not care about that? Which I think initially is valid, but I just wanted to explain how I think about it, which is that, one, I have no real baseline for Josh Giddey. Like, my baseline for Josh Giddey was essentially watching YouTube highlights, and most of those were just passes, And so I had an idea of what I would think coming out of his first game, but I didn't really know what it was going to be. Whereas someone like Darius, he's been here. This is going into his third year. Like, it would take so much at this point for me to dramatically change my opinion on Baze. Like, if he had come out in that first game and hit 6 threes, like, yes, it would have been awesome, but I wouldn't have had any real reaction. I wouldn't have suddenly changed my opinion on Darius Baisley. Like, you have to see it over the course of at least like half a season at this point. Whereas with Giddey, like, I just needed a baseline. And so that first game, I went in with an idea of how I would come out of it. And he so far exceeded it. And I think that's why I'm so excited, because my baseline now with Giddey is so much higher than I initially thought. Because the thing for me is, going into this, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, we've got ourselves like a young, good version of Joe Ingles, which some people might say, oh, that sounds not very fun at all. But actually, that would be a good player to have on a team, Yeah,
no doubt.
And that falls into that category of connector, which people were calling Josh Giddey a lot in the draft process. Like, oh, he's more of a connector. I would say he is much more than connector. After I watched that game, like, this is a primary ball handler. This is a guy who can generate good shots for his teammates every single time. And so my ceiling for Josh Giddey is now much higher than it initially was. And it's not just his passing, because the passing, again, that was something that I saw in the highlights. I knew it was coming. Obviously, it's great to see it, not in person, but to see it live on your team.
It is, however, outrageous, though. Like, it's
absolutely.
I was saying beforehand that he is definitively the best passer on the team. And I knew it to be true just from what I saw in the NBL, just from watching like several NBL games. Like, I was like, okay, like, this guy is very, very good. But I still felt like there's still like this like little bit of me that's like, is that really true? Like, could it really be true that he's the best passer on the team already? Like, am I underrating Shai or somebody else? But like, the answer was no, like, absolutely not. Like, he is without a doubt that lefty swing pass to the corner to Teo was just so crazy to me. He just whipped the ball over to him, and then obviously he had the offensive rebound, which like shows the other part of his game. But like, just like he had several passes that I'll say this, like, so Royce Young was sitting in front of me at the game, and there are these moments where you like want to turn around because because a moment is so good that you want to connect with somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like, you guys, like, you do this when whether you're sitting like next to somebody, like look at each other or whatever. Like, you have these like we have to look at each other moments. And like Josh Giddey, I think he had like 2 or 3 of those in the game, and he was the only one that had those moments where it was just like, just like the turnaround moment where you're just like, whoa,
yeah,
like this is really something.
And the passing is the thing that Hornets fans experienced last year with LaMelo, where it's like, as soon as you see it, you just feel so good because you're like, wow, we are in for years of just good-looking basketball.
Yes.
You see those plays, and it's rare. Like, that type of passing is so rare in this league, to the point when LaMelo did it, it was like this huge revelation, and no one even cared like whether he was going to be able to score or not. And it turns out he could score, but but that said, like, the passing was not the thing that really like raised my expectations, because I already knew about the passing. And the thing that got me was his size and his frame and how he used it. It blew me away. Like, he looked like one of the biggest players on the court, not just because he's 6'9", but like his body is NBA ready. I mean, you compare him to like Baze as a rookie or Shai at that age. Like, he is
compared to Baze now. Compared to Baze now. Like, honestly.
Or like Poku at the same age. Like, he is so much bigger than those guys, and he plays so much bigger. And so then you combine that passing, which really is elite. Like, that is elite level passing, with that frame and size. How many players in the league have that? Like, you're really talking about like LeBron, Ben Simmons, like, honestly, Joe Ingles kind of falls into. I mean, he's not that elite of passing, but for that good of a passer, you go back and think of guys like Lamar Odom, like Magic Johnson. Like, being that tall and being that good of a passer is pretty rare in the history of the NBA, and it gives you such an advantage on the court. And so, yes, it's only one preseason game, but the things that are there aren't things that are going to change. Like, if anything, he's going to get stronger. He's going to get bigger. And it's not like he's suddenly going to become a bad passer. So his baseline is so high. And that's before we get into like, oh, yeah, his shot doesn't look amazing. Like, there are obviously things he could work on. But the things that he does have are so NBA ready compared to other Thunder prospects at the same age. And that's why I'm so excited.
Yeah. His ball handling was more advanced already than it was in the NBL too. Because I didn't know what that would look like in the NBA against like quality players. And one of the good things too is that we got to see him against a lot of quality players. Hayward's one of the best, in the league from the wing position, because he can kind of do it all, and he is really strong. And Giddey is just as big as Gordon Hayward. I mean, I stood there as like close as I could be to them, and they were like equal in size, and Giddey's a little bit taller.
Yeah.
That's his 18-year-old body. He's not even 19 yet. He turns 19 in, I think, 4 days. So it's a really, really big deal. I'm here by myself with my 3-year-old, and I'm trying to keep him busy. So I'll be right back. Okay.
And the thing about this size is because one of the concerns with Giddey coming into the league was, is this guy going to, who is he going to be able to defend? That was like one of his weaknesses. Who is this guy going to be able to defend? But if he's playing this big, it's not just being big, but it's playing that big. You could see a scenario where he could become that kind of Ben Simmons role in the future, where he could play power forward and guard those guys and hold up against them, to where now you're not as worried about these tiny guards flying past him. Obviously, you would have to guard them at some point. But all of those things put together, like, and I said it on Twitter, like, I consider Josh Giddey a blue chip prospect in a way that I would only say that about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I almost just said
Shai Gilgeous.
man.
Yeah,
he is a blue chip prospect in that way. And I like other guys on the team, but like this could be like a diamond, Andrew. This is a diamond in the rough.
It's actually, that's very true. And like we had already heard things that should make you feel pretty good about him. Like we had already heard that that's who the Warriors were going to take. You know,
and seeing his game, he would have been pretty good on that team. However, going back, and someone actually brought this up in the chat, that this is Kevin Chen said this. If anything, he was more uncomfortable as a connector when you compare the first and second halves. And I would agree with that. Like there were some moments where you could tell he was trying to figure out what to do off ball. You know, he was kind of just trying to slide into the open space, but he didn't look super comfortable doing it. Yeah. And that's why, like, and I understand the argument against this, but that's why I would kind of like to see him run that second unit, because I think you just have to get the ball in his hands more. The times when he was out on the court and didn't have the ball and you were asking someone like Teo or Poku to do something, like it never looked as good as when Giddey had the ball in his hands.
Yeah, it's the team is putting a priority on he and Shai, though, and getting those two to be on the same page and to be able to work together. That was very apparent. I mean, just the way that Mark talked before the game, because I kind of, in my head, I've kind of broken it down to, I felt like I knew 4 of the starters, and then I didn't know if it'd be Giddey or Poku.
Yeah.
And like Mark wasn't thinking that way at all. And in fact, like he emphasized that like the spot that he was having the most trouble deciding was the center position. And, you know, he acted like Giddey starting was just a foregone conclusion. Like that was what was going to happen. There's not a lot that could change his mind. I asked him if he considered Poku for the starting position. He was like, yeah. He's like, I definitely considered it. And then he talked about how he wanted Poku running stuff through the second unit more and blah, blah, blah. But
yeah,
I honestly think that obviously, and this is where like the positionless basketball stuff like really like actually comes into play, because I do think that both Giddey and Shai are better with the ball in their hands, but like they're different in a way that it's not like a your turn, my turn type of thing, because they're both like good passers. They can both work off ball. I think I know that there's issues with Josh Giddey's shot. Like everybody has known that, but anybody that has been closely connected with him has always said like he will figure that out. Like that's something that will get figured out.
Yeah, and it may just end up that he just has a goofy looking shot, but it works for him. It almost looks like a set shot. Like it's weird how his legs kind of split when he shoots the ball. But it was working for him in the first game. But yeah, and so I get the idea of starting him. And the most convincing argument I saw on Twitter was someone said, I would start him simply because he's our second best player. And I was like, you know what? It's a pretty good argument. It's a pretty good reason to start him.
Yeah. I mean, he is without a doubt their second best player, right? You think are you in?
Yeah, I think I am. Like you could say that like Dort is the better NBA player right now, and if another team like just wanted a player for this season, they would choose Dort over Josh Giddey. But in terms of like long-term development, and you could even say like overall play by the end of this year, it might be Giddey. And the fact that he is, I mean, it's only for 4 more days, but the fact that he is 18 is just wild when you look at some of the other players on this team and young players on other teams. Like, of course, I always do like Obi Toppin as the example, but the idea that he has 5 more years of development until he gets to the point where Obi Toppin is right now. Like that is wild. Half a decade of development in the NBA until he gets to the same point that Obi Toppin is. That is wild.
In 7 years, he could still be on a list of players that are 25 and younger list.
He's going to become like the next Brad Beal, because I remember with Brad Beal, it felt like he was just always on that list. I feel like Brandon Ingram is that guy right now. It's like, wow, he's still on the 25 list. When is this dude going to age? So I am just so excited in a way that I haven't been for a like drafted Thunder player in a very long time. Like, obviously,
I was going to say the last time was James Harden, right?
Yeah, and that's
that
the
you felt
thing.
this way about somebody. Yeah.
Yes, because it's the level of skill from the get-go, like from the first play. And we really haven't seen that since those original Thunder players. Because obviously, like Shai, we got him in his second year, and watching Shai develop has been awesome. But we have been cycling in these drafted players each year, and you're kind of like you're doing a lot of wish casting with these guys, whether it's Bays or Poku. Like, you're trying to envision what the final product could look like. Whereas with Giddey, Terrence Ferguson, with Giddey, like, you already see like the NBA player who's going to be in the league for a long time. I mean, the combination of passing and size is so rare, and it works out so often in this league. It very rarely doesn't work out. And so he's already at this amazing baseline, and to know that he's there at 18 is just, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. And he's decently athletic too. It's not, and it was funny. And I think I brought this up with Michele on Monday, but just like the Gallinari comp, who is also somebody who's big and thinks the game at a high level and is like a pretty good passer too. Gallo's obviously like an incredible scorer, but his foot speed has always been like the thing that's like hindered him and held him back from being anything more than a NBA starter. You know, like Gallo wasn't going to be on an all-star team. Like, that was just not going to happen. But Giddey has the foot speed, and I think he can learn to shoot it. And if he doesn't learn to shoot it at a high level, like he showed lots of stuff. Like, he showed the floater, he showed the ability, like the in and out dribble. Like, he showed so much in just that one preseason game that you were just like, oh, well, I didn't know that was there. Well, I didn't know that was there. And, you know, just the way that he battled too, like the way he battled on the boards and pushed the ball, and he loves playing transition. And like, there was a lot to see. You have thoughts on his hair? Any Josh Giddey hair thoughts?
I mean, his hair's always looked really good. You know, me and Luke have been talking, you know, what is he going to develop in terms of his looks? Is he going to get a mustache at some point, or
he will have a beard at some point. He will have a beard at some point. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there, predicting the Josh Giddey beard.
Because if he wears his hair like that with a beard, I mean, just a lot of sweat, first of all, just flying off all game. But he would look very grizzled in comparison to other beard guys in the past.
He will. His hair's so bouncy is one of the things that I noticed. Like,
it is very bouncy,
and it stays dry. I think perhaps because it's bouncing so much. I was sitting next to Jenny Carlson at the game, and she was just like, "Hey, how does his hair stay so dry this whole game?" She's like, "Look at it. Looked like he went and like used a blow dryer during the timeout." I'm like, I don't know. I guess because it's bouncing. I don't know.
You mentioned his shot. Like, one of the comps going in was, oh, maybe he's at least offensively like a Ben Simmons. And I think you saw from the first game, like, he is way more willing he is way more assertive offensively than Ben Simmons has ever been outside of transition. But like in the half court, he is so much more assertive. He's never going to be a half of the defensive player that Ben Simmons is. But like offensively, you see it. And so
he took 4 threes. Like,
he took 4 threes.
Ben Simmons has never done that in a game. So
he has never done that. So yeah, I'm just so excited. Like, comparing him to other ball handlers, because people talk about positionless basketball. We're going to have a bunch of guys who can handle the ball. All of that is true, but at the end of the year, somebody is going to have run the most amount of pick and roll. Somebody's going to be number 2, and you see the difference with Josh Giddey, how much more pressure he puts on the defense in comparison to some of the other guys on the roster. Like, Teo is so much more methodical, it feels like, about how he runs a pick and roll, whereas it kind of gives the defense time to adjust. With Giddey, like, you better be ready, because if he's not going to throw some crazy pass, like, he's coming straight at you and he's going to go through you, which is just something unique. And Poku has a little bit of that, but he still seems more willing to just jack threes or he still has more interest in jacking threes than doing other stuff, at least from the first game.
He does. And that's where a lot of, I mean, Poku's value could be tremendous. Like, if Poku somehow ended up shooting 40% from 3, or even like 38% from 3, the value of a 7-footer doing that can also attack a closeout, that can also, pass the ball, obviously not on Giddey's level, but not like at an above average level. There's a tremendous amount of value there, and he knows that. And so I think that's something in his game that he feels very confident in and wants to continue to prove at the NBA level, which is cool. Let's move on to Poku. Let's talk about his game. It started out really bad, like super hilariously bad, because that's just, and you were just like, yeah, all right, this is Poku. This is Poku's game. And then he had a stretch where he like hit a three, had a drive, had a nice defensive play, grabbing boards, pushing, where you were like, okay, like he's kind of grooving now. And which was good to see, but it was just kind of more of the same from the end of last season, where it's like flashes of greatness, flashes of like, boy, he's very 19,
Yeah, he definitely still has 100% of the confidence still intact. Has not lost any of that over the offseason. He looks so much better when he's playing with Shai. Like when he's playing in a more structured environment, he looks like a different player because he's in a much different role. I'm fine with the idea of him running the second unit.
I'm kind of not, actually. Well,
I don't want to take that. I'm
one.
fine in the sense that it's probably going to be really bad, and it will probably hold this team back for the year, and it will
that was a big message sent, right? That like that 3-guard lineup with Poku and JRE was, I don't know what they were plus minus, but it felt like minus 1,000 because it
just
was
defensively
it was, really
it was awful.
They were such a mess. Even offensively, like no one really knew what they were supposed to be doing, and it was like there's 3-point guards and Poku, who kind of feels like he wants to be a point guard, and then Jerry still got a lot to learn. It was just like, wow, like it was as disorganized as I've seen basketball in a long time.
Yeah. So if the idea there is, listen, we're throwing Poku into the fire here. We're giving him this responsibility because we want to develop these skills. We know it's going to be ugly. It's going to take a long time, but we feel like we have to do this. Like, fine. But on the flip side, like, he looks like a totally different player when you play him with some of the good guys on this team. Like when you're playing with Shai and Dort, he just looks better. Like him getting kickouts from Shai, it just looks more natural. And those seem to be falling for him in that first game. So I don't know. I'm obviously still fascinated with Poku. Nothing really changed my mind from the first preseason game. He's kind of like a continuation, like you said.
Yeah. He was really funny post game because so Giddey went first. Well, Mark went first, and then Giddey came in and talked. And Poku stood in like the doorway, just watching Josh, just kind of like he like loves Josh already. And you can tell what's kind of cool about this team, and it really does feel like Thunder U, from back in the day to a degree, is that like these guys like genuinely love like being around each other and playing together, and like you can tell like they are genuinely like rooting for one another too, which is really it's just fun to see from a young group that they really are. There is some togetherness about them, which it makes it more fun. And they're gonna lose so many games. I mean, they didn't crack 100 against the Hornets. Like it's gonna be a long season. Like there's no avoiding that. Like this is going to be a long season. But this is a group that I think you can get behind. Like the starting lineup, I think is very easy to root for. I think guys like, I think JRE, like he's easy to root for. So is obviously Poku is. And then, we'll see what we get out of any of these other guys. But like they have a core group of guys that I think are fun to root for in general.
And that's where you mentioned like how rough this season could potentially be. That's where Giddey's passing like just changes the calculus there, because even comparing him to someone like Jalen Suggs, for instance, who we both think is going to be very good, but like the type of offense Jalen Suggs is going to be playing isn't going to be as aesthetically pleasing as what Josh Giddey is doing, even if he ends up being a better player than him. And so I think we're going to get to see some very watchable basketball just because of a couple of these guys who are going to be on the court a lot. I do think, I mean, of course, it's just the first preseason game, but I do not think that they are going to maintain that defensive efficiency that they had through the first half of last season, where they were like hovering around 10th. That is going to be much harder to do this year.
No, I think some of that is like your centers are Isaiah Roby and JRE. And as long as Favors doesn't play a lot, they're going to struggle to defend the paint. Because you could see guys were just getting in there and attacking. And then once they attack, the defense collapses. You can go find somebody. Because the defense has to collapse or else you're just giving up layups. So it is going to be a struggle. You're going to see Dort working as hard as ever, to defend. And then I think everybody else is just young. Young players just don't defend well. That's just the nature of these guys. Unless you come into the league and you're a Matisse Thybulle, and that's if you're not good at that, you're not in the NBA. And that's not the case with really anybody that's on this team. Everybody else has lots of different skills that they're working on, and it's not defense only. And I think they're going to compete, but I just don't think that they have the talent or the level of experience is honestly the number one thing for me that says they're just not going to defend.
Well, who are the plus defenders on this team, at least of the guys who we expect to be playing heavy minutes? It's probably Dort, Kendrick Williams, however much Derek Favors plays. Beyond that,
Favors may be closer to average than plus.
Yeah, beyond that, I think my next guy who might be Bays, just because I've seen it in the past, but we didn't see it as much last year. Maybe Bays could be the next best defender.
Maybe
Gabby Deck. There are not very many good defenders on this team. Whereas last year, Horford was playing a lot of minutes at the beginning. George Hill was playing a lot of minutes at the beginning. You still had Dort. You still had Kendrick Williams. Hamidou Diallo actually was a really good defender for them last year. Good. During that early part.
Roby would be on the list, on the Thunder list of today.
Really? Based on
the level of defense that everybody else shows.
Well, yeah, but I don't. I mean, him playing center, I feel like is one of the biggest defensive deficiencies on this team. It's one of the things that's going to be holding them back.
Yeah.
I mean, he really tries. Obviously, he had a really nice block in that preseason game.
He tries, yes.
But I don't think that's the thing that's going to.
But compare him to anybody off the bench.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, there's no good defenders on this team. We have we talked about 2.5 guys maybe.
Yeah,
and Mark Daigneault is known for his defensive that scheme. That's apparently what he was known for when he coached the Blue. And so you expect that he's probably going to get more out of these guys than someone else would. So maybe they're only the 20th worst defense. Maybe it doesn't fall off the cliff like it will for some other teams. But you compare that with the offense, which I can imagine a scenario where that starting lineup ends up being a decent lineup, at least offensively. But beyond that,
maybe.
Maybe, and it goes back to the defense because I still don't think
spacing is super awkward with that starting unit.
It is, and the defense may keep them from being a plus unit, but the second unit, anything beyond that starting lineup, I mean, I don't think it's going to be Samaj Christian levels because I don't think the starting lineup's going to be good enough to create that huge gap. But it is going to be bad based on what I saw. This roster is so young. And it did not hit me until I actually saw it playing, realizing it looked. I mean, that second unit looked like a summer league roster. Outside of Ty Jerome, everyone out on the court could have played summer league for the Thunder this year.
Yeah,
there's not very many teams doing that.
Have you picked an over under yet? I think 22.5 or 23.5. I don't know what the number is now, but it's one of those.
Yeah, I'd probably go under at this point.
I took the under last week on the Dream Team show, and I was the only one that took the under. And it was my reasons were they have no centers.
Yeah.
And this is a team that is going to play guys that are almost exclusively 23 and younger.
And it's crazy to think that we took the under last year. I think I took the over and you took the under, but I was obviously thinking that I was hoping that they would go under. But comparing last year's team to this year's team, there is a gap there. And I think one of the things that is going to come into focus, and it already started in that preseason game, is other teams are just going to completely sell out to stop SGA, because what else are the Thunder really going to hurt them with?
Yeah, the Hornets are already doing that. And I asked Mark about that after the game, and he was like, listen, like, you're a star in the league. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. That was his terminology.
Because Shai was not good. Like, Shai had multiple turnovers where he just couldn't handle a double.
Yeah, and that's what Mark said. He's like, listen, like, you're one of the best players in the league. He's like, and this is the phrase that Mark uses all the time that I think is really good. He said he's got to recalibrate. He's got to see those situations a lot, and then he's got to recalibrate. And he's like, and he'll be fine. Like, he'll recalibrate and he'll figure it out. But the thing is, like, there are, outside of Shai, there are 0+ shooters in that lineup.
Right. So when you start thinking about, okay, but Shai's still going to be able to do some drive and kick, even if they're swarming him. It's like, who is he kicking it to? Like, Lou Dort might be the best shooter that he's going to be kicking it to. I mean, I guess Kenrich had a nice year from 3 last year as well. But, the other two guys are probably going to be Giddey and Roby, or it's going to be Bays. Like, it's probably going to be a lot of 30%.
I think this will be the starting group. I really.
So you think they'll move Kenrich to the bench?
I think Kenrich will come off the bench. Yeah. And he'll take the minutes that, like, Deck got in that game. I mean, I don't see any. I mean, if the goal is honestly to be a team that develops their players, and they've been very clear about those expectations, then I would say that this would be the starting unit. I think that makes the most sense to try to figure out what these guys are. And especially, I think the Giddey Shai connection is I think that is the number one most important thing for this season, is to figure out how these guys work together.
Which is going to be really interesting, because I would obviously right now, Shai is the better off-ball player. He is. We've seen him do it in the past. He was very good at it. But clearly last year he became like the primary guy. And so fitting those guys together will be a challenge, I think, at least initially. All of this is to say that while it may sound like we're negative on this team, like, I am way more excited for this season now than I was before the first preseason game.
Yeah.
Because one, what I saw from Giddey, but also it seems like this team is ready to, like, do what we actually wanted them to do last year. And that could change. Like, Favors was hurt, Kenrich was hurt. Maybe they play those guys. Maybe they start those guys, and we're like, oh, okay, well, it's kind of back to last year. But it did, based on what the team has been saying, based on the buyout with Kemba, it does feel like we are getting a full development year, where that is, like, the absolute number one focus. We're not messing around. Like, we are going for it this year.
Yeah, it does very much feel that way. It felt like last season they were, like, more willing to sit back and say, we don't really know what this will be. And I think they did that with the Chris Paul team. I think they did that to a degree with last year's team, where they're like, oh, like, that's pretty good. I think that the way that they handled this season was just like, nope, like, we know. We know exactly what they're going to be. They're going to be really young, and young teams don't win. And I mean, that was the case. I mean, you look back at the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook year before they got James. I mean, you could say that, like, having Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, that's probably enough. Like, you're probably good. You're probably good to go there, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how, even back then, how people talked about Kevin Durant, like, no one is talking that way about a current Thunder player. Like, everyone knew, even by that first year in Oklahoma City, like, this guy's going to be, like, very good. Now, Russ was still a wild card, obviously, because of his rookie season, but KD had, like, that cachet around the league already, where it's like, this is a budding star right now. And that was a terrible team, like awful team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could have started back then to like Pelicans this thing, right? Like, let's go get veterans. We got to figure out how to put a good roster around this guy, with Durant, where like, even if like Josh Giddey and Shai prove that like, oh wow, like they really have like this is a duo. Like, we have an actual duo in OKC again. It's incredible. I think that they see the opportunity as, wow, this is great. Let's pull back even more. Like, let's trade Kenrich. Let's do little things around the edges, because we know if we add that third piece, like, then you actually have something. You add the Harden piece, you add whatever it is. And obviously, like, if Shai and Giddey end up, they're not going to be like Russ and KD, like levels like that level. Like, they're not going to get to that level. But if they can be a like close to all-star duo, and then you add another piece, and hopefully then that other piece can like possibly even be the best player on the team,
Yeah,
like
and
that could be that's very, very possible that you have those two who are very good players. I think you can already say Shai's a very good player. I think you can say that Giddey is like on his way to being that. But the truth is, like, I think the Thunder would still like to add like the quote unquote best player to this team.
And that's why you get excited about this particular draft, which I have not dove into yet, but there's a lot of big guys at the top.
Yeah.
Which there's plenty of room. Come on down.
There's space. There's minutes. This is not the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
This is a team that is in need of a big man.
Yeah.
And it is, I think that there is validity to that it does feel like they have intentionally built this team in such a way. Because, the Thunder weren't waiting for Sam Vecini's mock draft to figure out who's in this next draft, by the way. Like, they weren't waiting for mock draft 1.0 after the draft to drop to see who these guys are. They have known who the 2022 guys are for probably 4 years and have been waiting for this class. Like, they know who all these guys are. They have probably talked to their high school coaches. They know everything about these guys already. Now, obviously things change and develop quickly as you get into your 18, 19, 20-year-old seasons. But like they know who they are. They know who. The Thunder could tell you. They're not going to tell anybody. They didn't even tell anybody anything before. Like, nobody knew that they wanted Josh Giddey before the draft. The only person that knew was Lee Ellis before the draft. That's who they wanted. And that's just like, I think it literally is an Australian connection that he had, which is just kind of hilarious. But if you were to inject truth serum into the Thunder today, they would tell you who they want. They know exactly who they want in the draft. And it does kind of feel like they have designed their roster in a way to get that guy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the nice things is you watch Cleveland, you watch their first preseason game. I don't know if you saw that. I think they're going to be terrible again. And it's good for the Thunder, because there's a team who might be in the lottery that probably isn't going to be drafting a big guy, considering they just gave Jarrett Allen a ton of money and they just drafted Evan Mobley. So there's one off the board. Don't have to worry about
maybe
them.
Though. Like, I can't count on Cleveland to do the right thing ever. I just can't.
It's preseason, but they looked bad.
It's preseason. It looked really bad. Hopefully they're just middling. Maybe the 8th or 9th pick for them would be a better place for them to be. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be a long season, win-loss wise, but there's a lot more to root for here. Speaking of that, and we're going to talk about this player right after the break. We need to talk a little bit of Trey Mann right after this break. All right, Al. Trey Mann. Thoughts on Trey Mann, the other first-round pick from the Oklahoma City Thunder in this past draft?
Yeah. Kind of lukewarm on the pick initially.
Yeah.
That lukewarmness continued during summer league. And I would say I am still lukewarm. He, the skill that he has, He's able to create a ton of space on his own. He had a really nice drive where he kind of had like an acrobatic finish, looked great.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the type of player he could be there. But obviously, you have to start seeing the shot fall at some point. It's only the preseason. He's only played summer league, so I don't care. But if it ever does start falling with all the space he creates, you can imagine like a really electric scorer here. But there's been guys who've been able to do all the moves in the past and just haven't been able to shoot. So like I just need to see him shoot before I'm gonna like hype him up. But yes, you see things that are good.
Yeah, there's a little $1 million move, 10-cent finish thing with him going on.
Yeah, I can see that.
I also, and it was funny, like people watching him on the app thought he looked like so confident, and I was close, and I didn't think he looked that confident.
Yeah,
I feel like I saw something very different with him. I thought I saw him looking to people for, like, am I doing this okay? Like almost as like the look like of like a kid that was just like, is this going okay for me? Kind of thing.
right.
So I worried a little bit about that. And like he was getting like assurance from other guys were coming over and like patting him on the back, like you got this, it's okay. He had like that first initial turnover when he first came into the game, but yeah, he's a ways off. Like that's just kind of my feel for him, is that he's a ways off. And the thing and this is what I was frustrated with him about in summer league, and I felt the same in this first game, was like when are you getting to your pull-up three, bro? Like that's supposed to be your thing. Like that's supposed to be like one of like the skills for Trey Mann, is the three off the dribble. And I just want to know where it is. That's, and I felt like there were times that he could have gotten to it and he just didn't. So, and it's going to take, like, we just have to remember, like, these guys are young. Like, even Trey Mann, I know he's a sophomore, but like, he's still very young and he's got a ways to go. So there's going to be, and this is like, goes along with what Mark said, like a recalibration. Like, he's going to have to recalibrate because this isn't playing SEC basketball, like the jump is big for Trey Mann, and the jump is big for everybody, but I think it's very, very big for Trey Mann. And Tommaso Ferro talks about how that Giddey played pro. Like the league that Giddey played in was better than the summer league. It's better than the G League. It's obviously better than college basketball. So it's probably a little bit easier transition for him.
Yeah.
Because he did play against grown men and like guys that did play in the NBA that were kind of fringe NBA guys that played over there. But Trey Mann played like really crappy SEC basketball at Florida.
Right.
Like it wasn't. He has a ways to go. So I'm not really making any judgment calls on like anybody after one game. But
no,
I just wasn't that impressed with Trey in game one.
I feel like his skill set is going to be a steeper like road into the NBA than someone like JRE, because I feel like JRE can come in and try to just do all the little things and be successful in that role, whereas like Trey Mann has to like break down NBA defenders, which is a much harder task for someone like making that jump. So it's going to be a while with him, but again, with young players, like you kind of establish your baseline evaluation for them, and then you just kind of wait to see if they change that in some way. And so I'm unchanged on Trey Mann.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Aaron Wiggins kind of made me think a little bit. I thought he looked really, really good. Obviously, the shot, like just the shot going in, that's always gives you good feelings. But just the way he plays, it was just like, okay, like there's at least something there with him. I don't know if it's like G League something or NBA something. I don't know what it is. But he played with a confidence and a smoothness that nobody else on the team really has all that much of. So like he really set himself apart with that in general. But I need to see it a bunch more just to like, is my head just really enjoying the shot making? Like I need to see more from him. But when I watched him, it was like, oh, okay. Like I liked what he did off the bench more than just about everybody else.
Yeah, although I do feel like the team kind of let you know where he stands currently in the pecking order. Like it felt like a lot of his minutes were like just garbage time. I don't know if that changes where he becomes part of the second unit, then you're like, okay, the team is like really believes in this guy. So I'm interested to see like how many minutes he gets in game one. Like, are they that excited about him, or are they already sending him down to the blue?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't.
Because we got to get those minutes for Deck, Andrew.
Do we?
Where did I see? Maybe it was on Thunder Reddit. There are apparently some Argentinian fans who are very upset in the YouTube comments about how Deck is currently being used by the Thunder. Which, hey, I agree. He's being incorrectly used. I think he deserves to be on a different team that can use him more appropriately, because I do not understand his role on this team. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't understand him. I don't know if you play. I don't know.
Like just playing him garbage minutes in the NBA season, which feels like that's where this is headed. Like that's not raising his trade value. It's not getting anyone excited about him. So like what are we doing? It's making him a decent amount of money, which is good for him.
That's good.
Beyond that.
Do you agree that if he had a beard, he'd have some Roy Kent vibes?
I definitely think it'd help. You know,
I think it would help
having a beard.
I think he would look like. I think he would look like Roy. I think he would look like Roy Kent if he had a beard.
He was the first player where I saw him on the court and I didn't instantly know who it was, and then I was like, oh yeah,
he's here still.
Yeah.
Weird.
Wearing my favorite number too.
Oh, is that right?
Maybe I need to get a Deck jersey. I don't.
You should.
I have a Giddey jersey in my cart. I've never bought a basketball jersey before.
Wow.
Ever. Because I know I'll look terrible in it. But after that first game, I was considering it.
Oh, man. That's so funny.
I have to go in 1 minute.
Okay, Vic Krejci didn't play because he has a visa issue, and I don't understand why he has a visa issue when he's been in the United States for forever. I don't know if it's a work thing or what's going on. I don't have any clarity on that.
So. Wow! What a close to the show!
What a close to the show. All right, let's go to the stream real quick before Al's got to go. Jake, Art is here. Del Lott, Drew Stevens, Jake Hendricks, Crimson King, Cody McChicken. What's up, Cody? Cody is delivering Amazon packages near you. Thanks so much, Cody. Chad Scott from Yukon is here. Michael Clampett is here. Let's see. He said, if you're in the chat and haven't gotten a Giddey Up tee, I just don't know what you're doing. Yes, go to downtodunk.com and get yourself a Giddey Up tee. You want to be the first person to have a Josh Giddey t-shirt, don't you? Like, you want to be like one of the first people. So go get yourself a Giddey Up tee at downtodunk.com. Buster Nakamoto, Falk from Denmark, Drew Stevens and Numpton. We have Tyler Gibbs in Tulsa. We have Dude Buffet from the Dude Buffet Cinematic Universe. Let's see. Alex Bullerjack. What's up, dude? Kevin Chin is here. Ben _ Evan McDonald is here. Says, can I get a shout out from my friend Ben visiting me in Portland from OKC? Wow, there's another Portland OKC connection right there. Tyler Carroll, Nathan Creamer, Miguel Davella, The Fluky in Germany, Haftoren. That's probably not right, but maybe. All right, hope you guys are doing great. Enjoy your Wednesday. The Tall Shot, Zach Vobernick, Parker, Jackie Moon. All right, have a great day. Talk to you guys again on Friday.